Yes, the White House has just admitted on the record that we possess the technology to manipulate time and space. In other words, time travel, teleportation technology. Yes, the ability to transport large military craft from point A to point B nearly instantaneously. Seriously, just like what the United States did when they teleported flight MH370. Of course, we've covered that extensively here on the show. Friend of the show, Ashton Forbes, who's done remarkable work breaking this story wide open on the quantum teleportation technology, teleporting this craft out of thin air. Watch as it just vanishes in thin air as the orbs fly right around the outside of it, and it disappears. Boom, right there, gone.
No, it's still there.
Well, we looped it back.
Okay.
So I know it looks like it reappeared, but anyway. So this confirms what we've been reporting for years from whistleblowers, members of the military who've been on our show. We've spoken privately with them, also who've never been on the show, didn't want their faces on camera, who witnessed this technology in action. They worked on programs where this technology was in action. I want to play two clips for you now. One is from a few years ago. General Stephen Quast, he was the commander of the Air Education and Training Command at Joint Base San Antonio Randolph. And he was really pushing for Space Force at the time because of the technologies that we could employ from what he saw in action. So here he's explaining the technologies that he's seen on the desks of engineers at the United States Air Force. Watch.
The technology is on the engineering benches today, but most Americans and most in Congress have not had time to really look deeply at what's going on here. But I've had the benefit of 33 years of studying and becoming friends with these engineers and these scientists. This technology can be built today with technology that is not developmental to deliver any human being from any place on planet Earth to any other place in less than an hour, to deliver Wi-Fi from space where you never need a cell tower to connect, to deliver energy from space where you never have to plug your phone in and it trickle charges, and you can use that energy over time.
Okay. Was anyone paying attention? We were. So this confirms what we've been reporting for years on this show. So let me repeat what he just said. Quote, we have tech today that can take you from anywhere on Earth to anywhere else in an hour. Wireless energy where you could never need to plug in anything again. He saw this technology while he was at the Air Force engineering offices in Colorado where he worked. The second just happened yesterday. The second clip I want to show you. Trump White House official from the Office of Science and Technology, Director Michael Kriatsas, says that we possess the technology that can manipulate time and space. Watch.
Our passenger planes are slower than they used to be. Our trains crawl compared to those in other parts of the world. Our cars do not fly. Advances have not stopped, but something has gone wrong. Stagnation was a choice. We have weighed down our builders and innovators. The well-intentioned regulatory regime of the 1970s became an ever-tightening ratchet, first hampering America's ability to become a net energy exporter and then making it harder and harder to build. We seem to have lost focus and vision, to have lowered our sights and let systems and structures and bureaucracies muddle us along. But we are capable of so much more. Our technologies permit us to manipulate time and space. They leave distance annihilated, cause things to grow, and improve productivity.
Okay. So this is setting off all sorts of crazy alarm bells today. Friend of the show, physicist Ashton Forbes, posted this about the news. And like we have a lot of questions. So Kriatsas casually says we intentionally stagnated our technology in the 1970s, and now we have the tech to manipulate space and time. Wow. Ross Colhart, UFO investigator, posted this just a few minutes ago. President of the United States Science and Technology Advisor Kriatsas, a former undersecretary of DOD, makes the most extraordinary assertion here without any explanation that the United States technologies permit us to manipulate time and space. So tomorrow, I just spoke with Ashton Forbes. He's going to be on the show tomorrow. We're going to deep dive this. We've already talked about time travel with Ashton in a couple of interviews with him, but I really want to dive more deeply into this. And hopefully over the next 24 hours, we will learn more about this.
This is going to the bank last week with Clayton, and the banker said, I need your trustee to sign this. And he goes, the government has the ability to beam them here. They've had it for years. And I'm like, Clayton, this is the banker. I talk to people. I know this. Let's just get this.
But it was hilarious. She's like, wait a minute, what? And she couldn't believe it. And I'm like, oh yeah, we've had this technology for years, and you should watch our interviews with this, and this. And as she's like, she couldn't even move on. She's like, I just can't. I can't believe the teleportation. Wait, our government has quantum teleportation technology. I'm like, yes, they do. Of course they do. They've had it for years, and they've been lying to us about it. Anyway, we're going to dive more deeply into that tomorrow. But now maybe a little bit more grounded here. Let's talk about Iran, shall we? Because did President Trump's team just give Netanyahu the middle finger? In front of the cameras, President Trump is playing tough, talking about bombing Iran. But in private, though, he knows that would be a disaster for America and the world. And sources are saying behind closed doors, things are much different. You know, you saw him with El Salvador president the other day, and he was talking about bombing Iran if they don't come to the table. Trump does not want to bomb Iran, according to the sources. He wants them to be successful, which is exactly what he said on Patrick Bet-David's show just a short time ago. Watch.
Tanks running around.
What's going to happen to Iran with you by the end of your administration? I'm not asking.
I would like to see Iran be very successful. The only thing is they can't have a nuclear weapon.
Are you okay with the same administration and way of governing stays, or would you like to see it go back to the 70s when Shah's was running it and Iran was one of the top 3 countries in tourism?
We can't get totally involved in all that. You know, I mean, we can't run ourselves. Let's face it.
Sure.
Patrick,
So I want Iran to be successful. Incredibly successful. And he said it multiple times, and we can't get totally involved. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is practically frothing at the mouth, of course, to push the United States into a full-scale war with Iran. Trump just basically told him, sit down. We're talking with them. You sit down now. According to a new report from Zero Hedge, Trump is actively engaged in back-channel negotiations with Iran right now. And one Trump official said the discussions have been, quote, excellent. Like, you don't just throw that word around. Excellent. They were supposed to be for a certain amount of time, and they exceeded that. They went well over their time, and these discussions have been excellent with Iran to prevent a war. And with that one sentence, excellent, basically the entire military-industrial complex probably spit out their morning espresso because they desperately want us to go to war. They want a lot of people to die, and they want to make a lot of money off of it, of course. Israel is pushing hard behind the scenes right now. They want Trump to bomb Iran, period. They want the United States military to do their dirty work, of course. Netanyahu has been begging the United States Congress for 30 years to destroy Iran. Here's 2002, right after the 9/11 attacks.
You talked about a network of terror. Are there any other nations that you would recommend that the United States launch preemptive attacks upon at this point?
No, the issue is not. First of all, are there other nations that are developing nuclear weapons? Yes.
Should we launch any other preemptive attacks?
First, let me say what they are, and then let me make a suggestion how to proceed.
Thank you.
The answer is categorically yes. The 2 nations that are competing with each other, who will be the first to achieve nuclear weapons, is Iraq and Iran. And Iran, by the way, is also outpacing Iraq in the development of ballistic missile systems that they hope will reach the eastern seaboard of the United States within 15 years. So I guess that doesn't include California, but includes Washington. But what it does, a third nation, by the way, is Libya as well. Libya is, while no one is watching.
Okay, so
why didn't
we did
he
his
name
bidding
the
on
UK? Why didn't he name the UK or France?
I don't know. But we did his bidding on Iraq. He got what he wanted for Iraq. Yep. We did his bidding on Libya, as Hillary Clinton did, and the Obamas we saw, we killed. And now he wants Iran. Of course, that's the next one on the list, Iran.
In Scott Horton's great book, Enough Already, he talks about how Iraq did have weapons, but they were not of mass destruction. They were like baby weapons. They were like toys. It was in its infancy. So, okay. That one didn't hold up. Why has he not been punished for leading us into a war based on a lie?
But Trump isn't biting on this. He knows there are only two real options on the table right now. Option one is a check strategy, which is diplomacy first model right now, which is where international inspectors routinely verify that Iran is only enriching uranium for civilian energy purposes, not for nuclear weapons. It's basically the same model that was working before Biden blew it up and sent the region spiraling out of control. Now, option two, of course, is what Israel wants, a preemptive bombing campaign, or I should say Netanyahu wants, because Israelis don't want this. I mean, Israel would be destroyed, would be wiped off the map. So Israelis don't want this. That's why there's thousands of protesters in the streets against Netanyahu. They don't want it. But yet Netanyahu absolutely wants it, a bombing campaign on Iran's nuclear facilities. But of course, here's the problem with that. This wouldn't be like Iraq at all. This would be Iraq times 3, literally. I mean, Iran is 3 times the size of Iraq, has a much stronger military, battle-hardened militias across the Middle East. And oh yeah, by the way, the full backing of Russia on top of it. Let's not forget about that. This would be an absolute catastrophe, of course. Steve Witkoff confirmed to Fox News last night that Trump is seeking to limit Iran's enrichment down to 3.67% for use for nuclear power plants in order to basically become a successful country, which is what Trump has been saying all along. Watch.
This message of peace through strength, it resonates throughout the world. This is not a threat on my part now. It is just a simple fact. The president means what he says, which is they cannot have a bomb. The conversation with the Iranians will be much about 2 critical points. One, enrichment. As you mentioned, they do not need to enrich past 3.67%. In some circumstances, they're at 60%. In other circumstances, 20%. That cannot be.
So for nuclear enrichment for the purpose of nuclear energy to power their country. Iran's media, which has really not wanted Iran to engage with the United States and Israel, has really come around on this. You're seeing over the past 48 hours, the Iranian media is now expressing talks with expressing support for backing these talks with the United States, talking with Trump, ironing this out, keeping us out of war. But of course, Netanyahu desperately wants the war.
And also for the obvious reason that they want sanctions to be lifted. The United States has placed them under heavy sanctions since the Bush era, exacerbated by Barack Obama, with the lie of the fact that their sanctions would deter them from a nuclear weapon, and they never proved it. Plus, we launched a cyber attack on their nuclear centrifuges. And so Iranians want to have prosperity through free trade, obviously.
Tony Griffith on our chat points out, he said, that's not what Tulsi Gabbard said to Congress a few weeks ago. You're right about that. I mean, talking about moving towards a development of a nuclear weapon. And whatever sort of grade uranium enrichment is happening right now. She said there's zero intelligence on this, that the United States intelligence community has confirmed that they're not moving towards a nuclear weapon. So I think Trump knows that, and I think that's where these things are moving. So the talks will continue on Saturday as they move towards this agreement. All right, you want to talk about China?
Sure, I will do it.
All right, well, China has just warned Donald Trump to stop whining about being a victim of tariffs in the escalating trade war between these two nations.
So China wants Trump to just accept the tariffs that China has placed on America over the years, sit there and take it like a champ, but Trump will not. He signed an executive order to block risky imports of processed materials, all those rare earth minerals, and according to a new White House fact sheet, Trump used Section 232 authority to justify the tariffs, saying that there is a real danger of relying on China for material like lithium, graphite, and rare earth elements. The message, America is done being dependent on China for rare earth minerals. We've been warning about this for years on the show. America has the ability to mine many of the rare earth minerals that we need for production. The problem is that litigation by environmentalists has tied all that up and tied the hands of any administration that wants to do it. One of the things that the president said in his inauguration speech is, we're just going to get rid of this litigation and we're just going to go for it. We're going to go. I don't know how he intends to do it, But clearly he wants to do it. And many of the communities that have these minerals and resources also want the industry. They want the jobs. They want the prosperity. And can you blame them? Now, the fallout from this, though, little tiff, as we can call it, was immediate. NVIDIA stock tanked after warning that the new restrictions on AI chip imports to China would cost the company $5.5 billion. I wonder, did Nancy Pelosi have a heads up about that? Because that might have hurt her stock portfolio. I'm concerned.
I'm sure she probably sold the stock ahead of time.
Okay.
Before
I mean,
this.
she needed to know, she's got a solid record of her insider trading. So I hope that she had a heads up.
She has the best record of stock trading by anybody. Exactly.
Yes. All right. Well, but Wall Street also took a hit with the NASDAQ dropping over 2%. And analysts who don't like these tariffs are also warning that this could trigger another inflationary wave, especially if China retaliates. Now, China is furious. They say that this is unlawful. And in response, they slapped export bans on tech metals. And Xi Jinping, the president, says if Trump is respectful, we'll talk. I mean, define respectful, productive, possibly. I'm not sure that as a prerequisite, but okay. They're bringing in new trade negotiators to send to Washington, and the tariffs just seem all over the place. As we've covered, it does seem an inelegant rollout of what we may all have agreed was necessary, but this is messy. Okay, we were warned that it would be messy. Did we want it this way? I don't know. And here's where it gets interesting. Xi Jinping is suddenly open to talking, but only if the U.S. respects its core interests and stops playing economic hardball. Translation, China is feeling the squeeze too.
Yeah, they are.
Absolutely.
But look at these tariffs. So just to give you an idea, so people are saying these are all over the place. Like, okay, wait a minute. 245% on syringes and needles. Lithium-ion batteries, 173%. Squid, 170% tariff on squid. So, Philip, you're not going to be able to eat your squid tonight unless you want to pay that much. Wool sweaters, look at it's just weird kind of aluminum foil, 75%, all the way down to children's books at the bottom, 0%.
Interesting.
So, I mean, do you want your children's books coming from China? 0%. Okay. That's fascinating. All right. So we'll watch these tariffs back and forth. It seems like China is ready to sit down at the table. So will these 245% tariffs be pushed aside? It doesn't seem like it anytime soon. That's for sure.
Redacted is brought to you by Home Title Lock. Now, this is something, if you're a homeowner.
Well, I have to tell you. No, I want to tell you because I want to talk all about this because I don't know if you know the scammers can literally steal your home right out from under you. And it's unbelievable because I got some new data on this. The FBI calls it house stealing, and it's a growing real estate scam right now that's targeting American homeowners. And here's how it works. So criminals basically forge your signature on one document. Then they use a fake notary stamp. And you can get these things printed out like easily on Amazon, a fake notary stamp. And then they stamp it. They pay a small fee, and then you file it with your local recorder's office, and then boom, just like that, your home title is literally transferred out of your name. Stolen, gone. And this happens in the middle of the night. And I've spoken to individuals that this has happened to, and it's terrifying. Then they can actually take out loans on your behalf using the equity in your home. FBI is saying this is one of the largest and fastest growing crimes in the country. So let me ask you, when's the last time that you checked your home title? If you're like me, the answer is never, and that's exactly what scammers are hoping and they're counting on. That's why we trust Home Title Lock. We pay for it. We are users of Home Title Lock for our own home, and you can do it too. You get your first 30 days of triple lock home title protection for free. It's HometitleLock.com/redacted. You'll get urgent alerts if there are any changes. You get immediate 24/7 monitoring of your property. And they have $1 million triple lock protection that helps keep your home safe and your equity safe. And if fraud should happen, this is amazing. This is probably the best part of their service. They have a U.S.-based team that will restore the title to you. Their team will do it for you. They'll get your title back, and they will spend up to $1 million to fix the fraud and restore your title at no additional cost. So these guys are amazing. I've talked to their whole team. I've talked to people who've been affected by this and who have been saved by them. I'm telling you, these guys are fantastic. So HometitleLock.com/redacted. Go there. Your first 30 days of triple home title lock protection is free. Again, use our promo code redacted and click on the link in the description. HomeTitleLock.com/redacted.
Well, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky gave himself a 3-month extension of his own presidency by extending martial law for another 3 months. Now, Ukraine was due for presidential elections last year, but President Zelensky canceled them and has many times said, Ukrainian people don't want to go to the polls. They want me right here because I'm an international superstar. They love me. They do not want any regime change. If only there was a way to know that for sure. If only, I don't know, like
elections,
like an election. Ukrainian media, though, had been reporting that Zelensky would not extend his regime because they are state run. But alas, he did. So they have egg on their face. And his advisors now say that elections will not be held until at least 6 months after the martial law. So martial law could just keep going. And then after that, another 6 months. Well, Drew Berquist is ex-CIA and former counterterrorism officer and host of This Is My Show, has been warning that Zelensky is a dictator. So thank you for joining us. What do you think happens to the people of Ukraine, given that they can never have their voices heard?
Well, that's a good question. Thanks for having me, by the way. I mean, look, this is going to continue in perpetuity for a long while because it's so good for Zelensky, right? Which is why we're seeing all the things that you just described. Martial law. We're going to go ahead and push those elections off. Keep in mind, this was a guy who was not well liked prior to all of this kicking off. And as it's gone on, maybe there's been some climbs in certain sectors and areas of the population. But I just don't think that it's an overwhelming amount of support for the guy. It's just not. And for the people there, it is a tough spot. They're caught in a proxy war where they have no say in the matter whatsoever. And you've got us, the United States, our puppets in Ukraine in terms of Zelensky and some of them in Russia, all duking this out. And they really don't have any say. So it is as much as I hate what's going on over there, and I wish we had nothing to do with it, even though I know exactly how we do these things behind the scenes. For some of the Ukrainians, it's a terrible situation.
So as ex-CIA, we know we've been reporting before the New York Times ever told us that the CIA has been involved in their government since 2014 in the Maidan coup and everything. The CIA's multiple offices all across Ukraine. I like to say that Ukraine is basically run by the CIA. So couldn't the CIA do what it does and hold some sort of an election that gives them some sort of leverage here? I mean, it seems like they're controlling things there anyway.
Yeah, absolutely they could. But the kicker is in all these situations is what seems like conventional wisdom to the layman person out there, to the person who's just consuming news, or maybe even the citizens of that country, you know, wherever you're coming from, if you're not deep in the mix, making decisions, sitting at these tables, running operations behind the scenes, you really don't have a say. And even if there was an election, it doesn't mean that it's going to be run fairly, right? Typically in these types of situations, the outcome is however we want the outcome to be. So right. When you look at this, you would say, okay, well, we've been involved there. Don't we want an election? But that's presuming we want this to end. And I think that's where this has been so complex is there's, as you guys know, and so many listening to your show know, there's money in war. So, right. So if we have an actual election and people are allowed to share their voice and their vision for where they want this country to go, it could go catastrophically wrong. So the easiest thing to do sometimes is to keep it exactly as it is. We're going to keep this guy here. We'll pet his head every once in a while. He's getting out of control. We've got to watch that, which is a big issue right now. But we need this to go. So just because the country and we, the people back here, the taxpayers want this to end doesn't mean that the intel community does.
Wow, that's very, very smart.
Yeah.
Right? That's a very smart way to look at this. Absolutely.
Now, another thing that the Ukrainian government has decided is that they're going to pay travel expenses for anyone who wants to join as a mercenary. We don't see the same enthusiasm that we saw when this war broke out in 2022. He's saying, hey, we got food and travel for you. You may not go back and ever need food, maybe a one-way ticket.
Yeah, you'll die in 2 weeks.
Right. So Any takers? Now, why, though, would Zelensky make such a stink about, Russia's using foreign mercenaries? I found some Chinese. I found some North Koreans. But then go and do the same thing. Why do we listen to this hypocrite? And why would they do this? Is it obvious that J.D. Vance was right? They have a recruitment problem?
Well, they absolutely do, because this is something that they can't. I mean, Trump talked about it this week, and people can agree with him or disagree with him, but they can't win this. So they've always needed help. And now it's drug on so long. There's been so many deaths. So the morale is way, way down, understandably so. So you have to look to outside. And the thing to keep in mind, too, with this is this whole time that it's gone on, never should have started in the first place, dating all the way back to 2014. But certainly since the biggest, the more recent uptick and what's led to all of this stuff is they never had a whole lot going on in the first place on their own. In situations like this, you've got our people on the ground that you never knew were on the ground, training, advising, and assisting and running these things. And I'm not saying it goes this way every time. You can't just paint everything that way. But typically in those situations, it's, hey, here's the deal. We're going to give you money, weapons, and equipment, all that kind of stuff. And we're going to train, advise, and assist. But really, sit down, shut up, go color over here. Here's a coloring book. We've got this. So they've never had all the resources they need in terms of personnel. So now this far into it with support waning, of course they have to do that. And what's so remarkable about this is we'll pay your travel. It's no, you'll pay your travel. Go ahead and pay Uncle Sam, who will pay us, and then we'll pay you back a portion of that. The whole thing is just so ridiculous. It needs to end. And Zelensky's gotten so out of control.
Drew, we'll get you out of here on this. We saw Steve Witkoff, I think, spent a long time in Russia just recently, past few days. Trump's, peace delegation, basically trying to negotiate peace there. Where do you think things stand now? We were hearing, peace is on the horizon. Peace is about to happen in the early days of the Trump administration. It seemed to peter out a little bit. Now it seems like it's coming back. Where do you think things stand?
Well, I think it's tough. I think Europe is continuing to perpetuate war. I think that we've got people here still, and I think that Trump and the administration are doing all they can. They're doing some great things, but there's still some outliers here in the government who have a different agenda. They want to go a different direction than the administration. That will be sorted out in time, I hope and presume. But you've got a lot of people who are pushing back against it. And Zelensky, if this ends, Zelensky ends. The popularity ends. He's going to walk away with bags of cash for sure. It's either he walks away with bags of cash and is silent and goes off into obscurity, or someone takes care of him because he got a little unruly. But like his paths are pretty clear and certain. So he doesn't want it to end. Europe doesn't want it to end. And clearly all this time we haven't wanted to. Now we do with Witkoff there and this Trump administration. But that's the problem, is we're facing all of this because a lot of people make money. A lot of people like where it's at. And at the end of the day, I think that's one of the big things that we're facing. This thing never should have gotten this far, right? It never should have started in the first place. And then in the last few years when it kicked off, when did the United States ever offer an off-ramp to peace? Never. Like, we never did until Trump got into office. So we're facing an uphill battle in getting this done. So it's not all, and I'm not suggesting that you're saying that it is, but it's not all on Trump and this administration.
Oh, no. He was handed a shit sandwich. That's for sure.
Well, no. And he's like a child who's given the choice between mommy and daddy. That's what Zelensky 100%. Is. And, and so who does he choose as his allies, the United States or the European Union? He doesn't know. He's adult.
Yeah. Absolutely. And there is a really wrong decision on this. And my sinking suspicion is he will choose the wrong thing and this will go the wrong way. But again, anytime we prop up a leader like we did Zelensky, and I know some Ukrainians are offended by that, and that's adorable. But anytime we do this, it always goes this way. They start listening to people, chitter chattering in their ears. They think that maybe they've actually accomplished something. They haven't. And I'm not suggesting that we should have propped him up and we should be doing anything in that country that we're doing. I totally disagree with all of it, but that's how it works. And they get unruly. And then these things, the situation's exacerbated and they continue on. More people die, more money is expensed when none of it needed to happen in the first place.
Yeah. I think pretty soon next, as you pointed out, he's going to be handed a couple of bags of cash and probably given a nice sort of beachfront condo down near in Jacksonville. So you might be neighbors with Zelensky soon.
Yeah. Come on. We'll dance together. It'll be a great time.
Come for a barbecue.
Right.
Yes.
See how long that lasts. Drew, great to see you. Thank you so much for your perspective on this. Great having you.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
You bet. He's great.
Right. Yeah.
He's great. Thanks, Drew.
All right. Coming up, we're going to talk about Letitia James because she has egg on her face. She's a big hypocrite, and I am here for it. We're also going to talk about the female astronauts. I can't get enough of this story. I will not stop. You're staying for it. We have things to discuss. But before we get there.
Hey, I want to thank our friends over at Rumble Premium, by the way. Rumble defends free speech. And You can sign up for Rumble Premium for just $10, or very, very cheap. You can save $10 off their annual plan. So when major advertisers are conspiring to pull their dollars, even brands like Dunkin' Donuts turn their backs, claiming that Rumble had a right-wing culture. But we're not here to fit a mold at all. We're here to defend free expression. And we're proud to partner with Rumble Premium. Completely ad-free experience. Exclusive benefits for viewers and creators. You'll find exclusive content from our friends like Russell Brand, Dr. Disrespect, Timcast, the Mug Club, all of them. Your voice matters. So when you join Rumble Premium, for a limited time, you get $10 off their annual plan using the promo code Redacted. Just visit rumble.com/premium /redacted and claim your discount today. Using the promo code Redacted, get $10 off. Well, someone who's going to be a little hurt is Letitia James. Bye, Letitia. If you looked up the word karma in the dictionary, you would likely see a picture of Letitia James. Yeah, that Letitia James, the same New York Attorney General who spent the last few years going after Donald Trump like it's her full-time job. Like she has nothing, like there's no other crime. There's nothing else to worry about in New York City or New York State. Nothing else to worry about. But you got to go after Donald Trump. Well, she has just been hit with a criminal referral for, wait for it, real estate fraud. I mean, you can't even make this up. The woman who screamed for years that Trump inflated his real estate values is now being accused of doing the very same exact thing herself. Karma, plain and simple. There's no other way to read this. Former congressional candidate Mike Sapricone has filed an official criminal referral to the House Judiciary Committee. Here it is. He says in his accusation that Letitia James lied about the value of her own multi-million-dollar Brooklyn brownstone house, saying it was worth only $250,000 when comparable properties on the same block were selling for over $2 million. Look, if you've ever lived in New York City or the immediate surrounding areas, you know how absurd this is. I mean, parking spaces sell for over $300,000. I've seen parking spaces sell for $600,000. So the fact that she said that her brownstone Brooklyn home was only worth $250,000 is laughable at best. That's not a rounding error either, by the way. That's felony level fraud. And according to the referral, it potentially implicates major or multiple state and federal crimes because it was happening across state lines, including perjury, falsifying records, bank fraud, wire fraud, and tax evasion on top of it.
Well, also, some of the details is that she had she claimed that she was going to have a primary residence in Virginia so that she could because mortgage rates are more favorable when you are buying a house that you intend to live in. And so she said that she was applying for a primary residence in Virginia and that her father was her husband and they were going to be on the same loan when she is obligated to be a resident of New York in order to be the AG there. So either she lied to the voters saying she lived in New York and she didn't, or she lied on this Virginia residence and tried to get a more favorable loan for that residence. So which is it? So she's backed into a corner here. That's serious. You cannot lie on a mortgage application. That's a federal form. And so again, what she did to Trump when there were no, even the court in the Trump case says, where are the victims? Because Deutsche Bank, who gave Trump those loans, said, we actually weren't hurt. We got paid back. We gave him a favorable rate. The due diligence was on us. There was never any victims. But this is actually something completely different. Go ahead. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, you just read the rest of the story, which is great. So we're just on the same page here. Trump gets dragged through the mud in court. He gets fined hundreds of millions of dollars, has his entire business empire threatened as a result of it, right? For allegedly overvaluing his real estate. And the bank says, hey, we're totally fine with these valuations. And they gave them a loan on top of this. Meanwhile, Letitia James, sitting pretty in a multi-million-dollar townhouse, she may have intentionally undervalued to dodge paying taxes. So here's what she had to say about going after Trump. No one is above the law. Remember this?
Representing our respective states, stand up and enforce the rule of law. The president of these United States is not above the law.
No matter how rich, powerful, or politically connected you are, everyone must play by the same rules.
Will you sue him for us?
Oh, we're going to definitely sue him. We're going to be a real pain in the
And now the Trump Justice Department.
Yeah. So where's the FBI raid on her house? Where's the FBI going through her underwear drawer? Where's Alvin Bragg's mugshot moment for her? Like to be on the front page of the New York Post. By the way, that mugshot is now hanging just outside of the Oval Office on purpose. So when you walk past it to go into the Oval Office for a meeting, you see Trump's mugshot, which is just, it's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing. But here's the real kicker. As Zero Hedge points out, she may have claimed a homestead exemption on her property without actually living there at all. You can only claim homestead, of course, if it's your primary residence. So in plain English, she told the government, yeah, this is my primary residence, so she could shave money off of her tax bill when possibly living somewhere else entirely.
This is not an accident. You cannot accidentally do this. You can't not have not known. Yeah, no, this was
criminal. It's criminal because, you know, at the heart of a homestead exemption, like we looked at doing this actually for a while when we lived in New York City. But we couldn't do it because you have to live there 6 months and a day, right, in this other residence to claim homestead exemption. And so people will get this homestead exemption in Florida, like New York City CEOs and Wall Street types or whatever, and they have a home in Florida. Mm-hmm. And they'll get the homestead exemption because they try to spend 6 months and 1 day in Florida.
Yeah.
And then they come back to New York City for 5 months and 30 days. Then they can get the homestead exemption because they're legit. And you can see that in your plane travel and your credit card. Like if you're buying gas at the gas station, right? They know where you are.
You have to prove it.
Yeah.
And other ways you can prove it if your kids are in school there. Were her kids in school in Virginia? I don't even know if she has kids. Do you have a gym membership there? Where is your driver's license held? If she does not have a Virginia driver's license, that's a big deal. But if she has a Virginia driver's license, how the hell is she the AG of New York State?
Right. Exactly.
So
she's an absentee AG. So she comes back to New York just to go after Trump, and then she goes back to Virginia. Okay. Well, anyway, here's what she wrote last Valentine's Day. Roses are red, violets are blue. No one is above the law, even when you think the rules don't apply to you. Happy Valentine's Day. So Letitia James, karma's coming for you.
Well, the female empowerment space flight may be a total nightmare for Blue Origin. It may go down as one of the biggest PR flops in modern times. Now, this so-called crew is saying they are very offended by the backlash and it is sexist. And they say, hey, we didn't just ride the space capsule, we did research up there. So I'm very confused because the whole thing was 11 minutes. They were actually in space for 4 minutes. So I can't wait to see what kind of research can be done in 4 minutes. Here is Gayle King justifying how she accomplished so much, and her fellow passenger, Aisha Bowe, who is a scientist, saying, hey, we did serious business in that 4 minutes.
Oh, there's so many things that have been developed in space that benefit Earth, from pharmaceuticals to like research on agriculture.
Yeah.
And, you know, I paused there because we did research and it was emotional. I mean, part of what I accomplished in my flight was I was looking at the future of being able to produce crops that can withstand harsh environments so we can look at food security here on Earth. And simultaneously, we also were able to certify that device so more people could do research on New Shepard.
So what?
Okay.
As Privateer Productions in our chat says, 4 minutes playing with stuffed animals, which is what they were doing.
Well, let's look into that research, shall we? I took a look, and she has, in fact, collaborated with Winston-Salem State University, which they call themselves a historically Black educational institution. And according to this release, their project was to bring crop plants on her flight. So presumably they were in her purse or in a container. We never got to see any footage of the plants. And she says, and this project says, that now the students will analyze how plants responded to microgravity at the molecular level. So some questions. Did they actually need her to be there, or could they have put it in like a suitcase and sent that up in the overhead compartment? Or what was her role there? Just bringing them along because she already had a ticket? Also, the footage in the pod showed these ladies mostly fooling around with tchotchke. So does she really do anything while she was there, or did she just carry along those plants and like anybody could have done it? You could have put it in like a barrel or something. And can you really study? This is a good question for Philip, who has a molecular biology background. Can you study exposure to something from 4 minutes in a pressurized chamber? Like, what are we going to get from this? What is humanity going to get from this, do you think?
I think if 4 minutes of exposure to microgravity would affect the molecules in whatever plant she had, I would argue that everybody on the International Space Station is like way overly mutated, or they're just disintegrated. Like, I don't see like maybe I don't know. Maybe there's some like research parameters that I'm not familiar with here, but I wouldn't say that if somebody wrote this up as a proposal for research that this would gain any traction whatsoever. This seems a little suspect to me, possibly even bogus. This sounds like what you would do, like a science experiment for kindergartners to get them into science.
One man band in our chat says, it just jumped up there. Sorry. Sorry, I missed it now. It just jumped. But he said 4 minutes. Yeah, come on. I feel bad now. Sorry, let me give me the mouse back here. 4 minute. Shoot. Sorry. I was reading it and then it just jumped. I apologize.
Can paraphrase?
I don't even remember now, but it was good. But it was about, type it again because it was good.
Okay.
4 minutes in space.
I mean, it seems to me that it was clever of her to say, hey, I got a ticket on Blue Origin. Do you want to give me some science project? And we can say that this is research based. That seems very clever. Now, this is not to take anything away from the fact that she is a published scientist. So I'm just curious about this project, this 4 minute project. And when she publishes this paper, I would very much like to see it. Now, when she talks about how humans benefited from space exploration, well, that's true. That's why we have Velcro. That's why we have solar panels. But I do not buy that riding in a manned pod that was manned by men from the ground means that these women contributed to Velcro or what she talks about, medicines or solar panels. Now, Gayle King says that they are being downplayed because they are women, and men, when they take a ride to space, didn't get this kind of media coverage. Watch.
What do you think when people say, oh, it's frivolous? Number one, they call it a ride, which I find very irritating because they never say men went for a ride.
Yes, they do. William Shatner went a couple years ago, and they did, in fact, call it a ride. So no one actually thinks he's a real space captain. Do you? I do, because I'm a huge Star Trek fan. So I believe that Bill Shatner is Captain Kirk. But even he, when he got back, was like, that was an incredible ride. Right. I mean, he's not like, I'm up there doing work. It's not like he was up there, stopping Klingons. Right. Well, I want to talk about this because these ladies were faffing about, and the men on William Shatner's ride was completely different. I'm going to show you. Also, we still don't have footage, and we never did from the Shatner ride either, of the launch and the descent. I was expecting some kind of Spaceballs level ludicrous speed. Like, I wanted to see their faces look like this. If you know, you know. If you don't, watch Spaceballs with your family immediately. I just was wondering, why didn't we get that? Is it because they got sick, or because they are maybe too vain to look like that? Or did it happen? I'm just wondering. Was it totally fake? Yeah. Now, again, let's watch the footage of William Shatner when he was in space for a short period of time and the sort of humility he showed, and then compare and contrast that to the videos you're seeing of, again, all the fooling around that the all-women crew did. Watch.
God.
Oh, Jesus. No description can equal this.
They're just so quiet. They're just like taking it in, except for the woman. But
Clayton.
This is
there's a lesson. Just don't send women into space.
So once he turns over his shoulder to say, wow, but he's not promoting anything. He said, it gave him this profound sadness almost. It was humbling for him. Quite the opposite to the group of Barbies. Also, you might have noticed they weren't wearing these NASCAR-looking suits. Well, the New York Times reported that Lauren Sanchez worked with designers from Oscar de la Renta to make these. And here was their goal, according to one of the designers. If we make these suits approachable and like something anyone could wear, then space might feel a little bit less distant. Maybe people would say, I want to buy that spacesuit and go to the gym.
Oh my God. Get out
You're
of town.
supposed to be motivated to go to the gym by these space outfits that were flattering and hourglass looking. And also they could zip down to here because that's Lauren Sanchez's MO. So are you inspired to go to the gym? Again, now, even though these ladies are now calling themselves astronauts, the FAA rules say they are not. FAA rules require that the crew members have, quote, demonstrated activities during flight that were essential to public safety or contributed to human space flight safety. None of these girls did this. William Shatner didn't either. They took their seatbelts off and on and in order to descend. So it would be shameless to call yourself an astronaut given these rules. And of course, the contrast of people who actually are astronauts, it's no better than saying that men can breastfeed, but they have the balls, I guess, to do it. These girls do. So let me know what you think of that.
Paracrete says in our chat, sadly, Redacted is promoting a hoax. So, well, no, yesterday on the show, we covered how a lot of people think this was fake. I mean, we showed you the hatch opening ahead of time before Bezos even walked up there. And I think Cody also, can I have the mouse if you please? Sorry. So Cody in our chat says, Cody Pertlets, thank you for the $10 super chat, says they accidentally were filming live when the door from the spaceship opened from inside. Fake, fake, fake. Yeah, we covered that yesterday on the show. We showed that capsule being opened from the inside.
Right. And right now, what I want to talk about is the ridiculous narratives. It's like, oh, it's sexist because you don't believe us. It's sexist because you say we didn't do very much. We did research. In 4 minutes, we did research. That's what we're talking about right now. Well, yesterday, we talked about whether or not it happened. What were you going to say, Philip?
Oh, I just two things. One, I would say like the only research I think you could conduct in 4 minutes would be like microgravity's effect on your bladder would probably be a good, if any of them peed themselves, then we would know that. But like, it's the difference between saying like, if I say, I flew to Seattle this weekend, you would assume that I got on a plane and somebody else piloted it to Seattle. If I said I flew a plane to Seattle, you would assume I was the one flying the plane. That's why they're calling it a ride, because they didn't do anything. They just rode. Right. They were just in it.
Yeah.
I think next time you fly, Philip, you'll be considered part of the crew and may have to go up in the cockpit and take things over.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
is it offensive to the bus if I'm just riding?
Yeah.
At that point, I'll be a captain and an admiral. So, because I've been on a boat before too.
Yeah.